This conference will now be recorded.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a visitor with us from the Miro app, Stephen. And what I'm going to do is do the pledge, and then we will let Stephen do his presentation so he hasn't got to stay on and listen to our long agenda here. And then we'll go back to the agenda. So at this time, if you would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Blocker, I'm going to go ahead and mute, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for having me here. Just for the record, I love REMSCo meetings, so I'm happy to stay all night. Anyway, so let me share my screen and show you what we do. So this is MURU. MURU stands for Medical Guru, in case anyone's wondering. It's a commonly asked question. So what we do is we're a software company built by a group of paramedics and engineers, and our goal is to really work on building software that really helps EMS in the field doing their jobs. We find that a lot of the work done by software companies in EMS, and from me being a paramedic myself and the software I've been handling over time, really is software that comes from the software that gets handed down from either the healthcare system or from other first responder agencies. And rarely is it customized exactly for us. So when the team and I got together many years ago to figure out what we should tackle, we thought of protocols. So we all know protocols and love protocols, right? They're the things everyone spends a ton of time writing and building and making amazing. But unfortunately, the medium in which they are transmitted to providers and the work providers have to do on them is still the same as it has been since it was initially created in paper. So what do I mean by that, right? I mean things like go to another page on the PC, on the protocol set, or another protocol set to look something up. I mean checking manufacturer's recommendations, doing med math and dosing, right? We all know all these pain points that EMS deals with every day in the field when on call. And that's because, again, what we've done over time is we've said that protocols are digital, but they're not really, right? They're just paper made into digital paper called the PDF, and you still sift through them exactly the same way as if they were paper in your hand, right? As a matter of fact, I know many providers who still prefer it that way, because we really haven't given any real advantage to using technology when dealing with protocols. So we really get these four major problems, right? If you really think about it. One is the information's all over the place. Two is when protocols are written so that both EMTs and paramedics and everyone have to look at everything, whether or not it applies to them, and when they're on a call in an emergency, they have to sift through all that information to see what's applicable. Then once they find the right thing, they then have to do all sorts of things to customize it to the patient, like dosing calculations. And then last but not least, they have to constantly try and remember what's new or what's changed in a multi-100-page book. So what we do is we do two pieces. One is we take everything that what we feel a provider might need when in the field, and we try and bring it all into one hub. So that means everything from protocols from the state, through the regional advisories that you guys put out, through the local hospitals and all their information, to the medications that the provider carries on their ambulance and any information affiliated with that, and then the actual manuals and all the other information about each piece of medical equipment that they carry. They're expected to know all the details of the complex things, right? So really the app is a one-stop shop for all access to all of this data, right? You can go to one place and it's all there. On the other side, we use really good design and a lot of strategy to make sure that they can find the information they need really fast, whether that's browsing or us giving training directly in the app when you open it up, or making it really easy to understand how to navigate through under high stress situations, right? We make it really simple and fast to be able to use. So a few things to quickly talk about before I demo it. One is that everything I'm about to show you works completely offline, except for updating the app. There is nothing the app needs internet for. So you'll see things like search and other things in here. Everything works offline, which means everything's just as fast, whether or not there's a connection. It's individually personalized to each provider. that means that every provider, we look at who they are and we give them a tailored view in the app. That means customized to their protocols, the equipment and meds that they carry on their ambulance, and their certification. The app acts differently if you're an EMT, AMT, or paramedic. And then we make sure that everything in the app only comes from your official sources. We are pulling nothing in from the web. This isn't WebMD where you ask a question about symptoms and it says you have one of 50,000 forms of horrifying cancer, right? This is literally only the information that's officially authorized by the state, by REMSCo, by REMSCo, by the medical directors, by the chiefs of the organization, right? Nothing in here gets pulled from a random source. It's all from sources you are providing us. And then anything that changes, we send out a notification. So any new CMAC advisories, any new REMAC advisories, any new protocol changes will immediately push directly to the provider so they can see that information. And then last but not least is the search bar. And what this allows you to do is ask any question you want, any way you want, and it will understand what you're saying and immediately answer the question for you. So without further ado, let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's the app. I can open the app, and as you can see in the upper right corner where the little M is, I can click on it and swap between the agencies that I may work at. So it'll automatically switch between the agencies. And again, if you work as a provider at a different certification level at each agency, it'll swap between that too. So paramedic will be treated as paramedic. If they work one place, they can work BLS another place, it'll understand that and you can just swap between them. And then you have these 4 sections down here for browse. So when I click on protocols, it'll immediately know that I'm, again, this is for me, so I'm a Nassau County paramedic, and we'll pull in the Nassau County REMAC advisories and anything else issued by the REMAC, and then of course everything from CMAC and REMSCo. And I can click on any one of them, open it up. So let's click on, let's do the collab, click on the protocol, and I can see the protocol. It'll take me right to the right page. I flip it sideways, it shows a big grid. From there, we have medications, which will pull in the list of medications from that I'm carrying on my ambulance. I can scroll to any one of them, let's say fentanyl, and I can immediately see the vial of fentanyl I carry and the concentrations I carry it in. If there's more than one, I can flip between them and see every protocol and the exact dosing in that protocol of exactly how to give it, from pediatric and adult, laying across the whole thing. The same thing works for equipment, where I can pull anything up from my CAT tourniquet. And not only can I see the CAT tourniquet itself, whether it's CAT 5, CAT 7, or anything else, I can click on the manual and it'll immediately pull up the manufacturer's recommendations on exactly how to use that product. The same thing goes for something like a cardiac monitor, where not only can I see the cardiac monitor that I carry, but I can see everywhere I pace, cardiovert, or defibrillate for that patient. And then again, the manual. And not just any version of the manual, but the most recent version of the manual, right? Your Vision D of the Zoll X Series manual. From there, we also have directory. If I click in the upper left corner here on the 3 lines, I can click here, and there's a directory button down here. This will list any phone numbers that you guys as the region or the state would like to put in, combines the 2 together, customized to each region, and takes the state phone numbers and the regional phone numbers and displays them to the provider. And then, so that's kind of the big piece. Oh, sorry, and the last piece is help. Down here in the corner in the bottom left, we provide a help section where they can look through help articles or directly live chat with us and ask any questions they would like about how to use the product. So they can get right in there and talk directly to them. So that's all great. There's one other big piece we offer, which is search. So that's great for when you're browsing around and looking through all the material. But if you want to be able to find it super fast, we also do some things around search. So I can, again, go back to the same thing I was doing before. So let's say I do diabetes here. I can type in diabetes, and the moment I'm done, it recognizes that diabetes isn't covered in one specific protocol, but covered under 2, right? Hypo and hyperglycemia. It'll then allow you to see whichever one you want. So again, if the protocol itself doesn't bring that up, because the word may not be in there or the title may not be in there, it doesn't matter. We understand what you're asking and take you to the right protocol. I can also do the same thing for kids. So let's say I have an asthma patient. I can type in asthma, and then let's say they change. Let's say it's for a child. I say that the child's 7 years old, and immediately it swaps out from adult to the pediatric asthma protocol, which I can click on. And as you can see, it has found the pediatric asthma protocol instead. There is no pediatric protocol, no problem. It just keeps you on the adult. From there, let's say I'm a provider and I'm a paramedic and I've given a few comp events and nothing's working and I need to go a little further down. I can type in that I want to give epi, and it will pull up every dose of epi that I'm allowed to give in that protocol. So that includes all of these doses. You can see for a critical asthma attack, I don't need to call medical control, right? I can give the IM injection of epi. Then I can, if it's for just regular breathing, I have to call MedCom in order to make sure that I get permission to do so, and that's either for the racemic or the epi itself in the nebulizer. And then later on, I can give an infusion. But as you can see, this is all weight-based calculations. So again, just go back up into the search bar, type in the weight of the patient, I don't know, 145 pounds, let's say. And it immediately, well, for a kid, that's way too heavy. Let's try something a little bit smaller. As soon as I type in 36 pounds, it immediately does all my weight-based calculations for me. So it'll do my weight-based calculation, including infusion calculations, where it says, looking at the saline bags you may carry and the drip sets you may have, pick whichever one. We're going to automatically pick the best one to give you 1 drip per second. So if you see here, if I grab this button, if I grab the toggle and slide it around, you'll see at the bottom, it swaps out those information in blue based on when I release in order to keep it at 1 drip per second, or one as close to that as possible. Try to avoid 5 drips per every 7 seconds for all risks. And if I have any questions about doing that, I simply click inside and I can see the live dosing calcs on exactly how we've done it. And then if I have any question about the protocol in the upper left corner, you'll see a little icon. I click that, and it takes me right back to the protocol where we pull that information from. Last but not least, once we ask the questions, it'll pull out the information on that patient. So you'll see here, it pulled out the age and the weight. I could have said, I have a 7-year-old patient that weighs 36 pounds and they're having an asthma attack. How much epinephrine do I give? And it would have understood the exact same thing, pulled it out and showed it in the same. So that's that piece of it. So if I clear out this search, it'll keep that information in there, which allows me to ask any other question on the exact same patient. So that's that. And so that is a quick run through of what we do in Muru. To show you a little bit more about us. So we recently partnered with the state to become the official protocol app of the state of New York. What that means is a few different things. One is everyone has access to Muru for free forever. There is no part of this that is, the state has secured a statewide package for everyone to have access to. And for that, everyone in the state has access to Muru. They can go anywhere in the state and the hospitals will travel with them if they go mutual aid really far away or anything else like that. We're working directly, hopefully, with you and all the other REMSCOs to make sure that the information you want is in here, and that as you want things updated, we can immediately keep this thing updated always on time. You'll let us know in advance of when something's changing. We'll work with the program agency to make sure we're always informed of what that is. We'll keep very on top of it, and the moment you say publish it out, we'll publish it, and people will get a push notification, every provider in the region, saying, hey, there's been a new protocol, there's been a new policy, there's been a new advisory given, something really important has changed, and we'll notify them right away. And no matter what, they can always go back into the app and find everything that you guys would like in there for them. And so that's that, keeping it all in one hub. Just a little bit more about us. So we're considered something called software as a service. There is no V1 or V2 or V5 of Muru. It is a continually ongoing thing, which means we will constantly building out new features and constantly delivering them, just like we'll constantly be keeping the information up to date on the platform. The provider does not need to download a new version. There is no, the state has to renegotiate for anything, right? This is constantly updated. We find a new thing that we want to build and we're always building new features. It just automatically pushes into the app like you would on Gmail or Facebook or any other product that you may have on your phone. So with that, we do offer 3 different versions of the product. The first one is the state partnership, right, which is free and available to everyone. That one is your all access to all the content. There's nothing in the app that we're showing as far as what's in there, the raw content, that isn't accessible to every provider statewide. The protocols, the hospitals, anything else, it's all in there. So everything in the app is available through there. The search and other dosing calculation functionality is something that we have made free for all of the state because of COVID. We've been actually out in the state for about 1.5 years now, and we've always left it open. At the end of this year, providers will have a choice to either a few months beforehand, they'll get a message saying, hey, if you would like to keep the search bar or anything else like that, feel free. and they'll pay a fee to Muru, and or not, you can go to your chief and ask them. And then the chief and the organization gets a whole bunch of other features around training and other insights as to the content that's there. For example, they'll get the notifications that just be notification. Will have a big blue bar at the bottom that says notify my chief that it's happening. And so when the region or the state pushes out an update, the chief can then see 3 or 4 days later who's accepted the update and who hasn't. So they know, oh, look, 96% of everyone on my organization is already updated. And for training insights, we do this in 2 forms. We will be rolling out training insights both for the regions and the state as just part of our state agreement. That'll be in there. So you'll be able to see how the region as a whole is interacting with your protocols. You'll be able to see where CME should be focused, what training is important, right? We can understand that, hey, paramedics are struggling with this specific protocol or something like that without ever violating the individual user's trust, to allow them to really see what's going on. And they'll give you guys really great data to understand where people might be struggling. For example, at my agency, I know everyone struggled with the pandemic triage protocol and understanding that when the patient did not meet the criteria to go to the hospital, were they allowed to RMA them, or did they only have the option to RMA, or were they allowed to say, no, you're not allowed to go to the hospital, right? And so we can see questions like that before the issues happen or as the issues are happening and immediately give you guys that information so that you can update your training or policies or whatever else you would like to communicate back to everyone. One thing I forgot to mention in the demo, so forgive me, is hospitals. So hospitals is sorted by category. You can see all the categories listed by state capability in here. You can click on any one of them. I currently am giving this presentation from New York City. So if I click on burn, it'll pull up burn hospitals, GPS distance from where I am, with all the capabilities coming from the state, as well as the ability to call and get directions. Get directions pushes out to the navigation on your phone to immediately show you where you want to go, right, from where you are. And then call will ring whatever phone number the region or the hospital decides is where they would like notifications to come in from. If you click on that piece of information, it opens up an entire little section just on that hospital, which has all sorts of detailed information. This information is either dictated by the state or you guys, and then the hospitals will have the ability to add extra notes or other things like that to it as well. And then at the bottom, we show every source of where we pulled that information from so that the provider can check it. And so that's it. Muru's free to download right now. You just go to murumed.com and get an account. We ask you a few questions in order to understand which agency you're part of. If you're a paramedic or an EMT, you can sign up for multiple agencies. There is no cost assigned at all. And happy to take any questions, guys. Thanks for letting me present.
Mr. Blocker, would you forward this presentation maybe to Ann so we can send it out to the REMSCo members, because we don't have everybody on tonight, so that everybody can have your information and your contact as well in there?
My pleasure.
Does anybody have any questions?
Steve, Mike Bennett. Do you have any pricing information on individual and agency-wide service that you can share, or is that going to be based on each individual agency and their number of providers?
Oh, no, sure. It's a standard price. It's $8 a user a month.
For both agency and individual levels?
Correct. The agencies are getting more features than the individual gets, right? They're getting training data and other things like that. And then the individual gets access to search and dosing calculators and things like that. But we keep it one fixed, easy price.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
I have just a quick question, but first, before I do that, I'd also like to introduce Amy Eisenhower. She's the new EMS well, she's not new anymore. You've been there a few months now. So with the Department of Health, the EMS for children, and worked on helping set up this EMS or the Muru app.
You could have easily given the entire talk without me here.
I think you had some very specific things that I probably would have left out. But hi, everybody. So still a little bit new, but yeah, I've been with the Bureau about 10 months, working with EMS for Children and also the Coverdell Stroke Program. I'm the EMS liaison for that. But EMS for Children worked with Stephen to kind of get this out because one of the more difficult things, right, we don't see that many kids. And actually, I just ran some data. Approximately 9% of the calls statewide are 20 years old or younger. You know, a lot of the pediatric protocols we might not remember, definitely dosing and pediatric specific meds and all of that, you know, not just in New York State, but all across the country. Other EMS for Children program managers have the same issues. You know, how to remember the stuff that you don't really put your hands on all the time. And then in an extra stressful situation. We're happy to work with Steve and Ruru to bring this to everybody in New York. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I do have now my question. Did they work in for the program agencies to have the agency access or a REMSCo for the training purposes of that, or would we need to purchase that?
Oh, no. So the REMSCO is getting it for the region, and the state's getting it for the CENSCO, just as part of, like, we're giving you that data. You're not going to be able to see like the individual user, right? We don't want people to feel like we're spying on them, but you'll be able to see for your region, how your region, where your region's struggling and where that training information is, right? We want to, you know, Director Greenberg's been great about talking about data. And Amy talks about it too right now, right? And this is our goal, right? Our goal is to be your megaphone and to help you get your information that you've worked so hard to get out there. Obviously, you still have to make money, but no, we're giving the region and the state as much data as we can to make sure they can make sure everyone's up to date and educated as possible. That is going to come directly to you.
Okay, and I apologize, I'm always the one full of questions, but is that something that like you'll provide us with the data, or we'll have the ability to go in and look?
We're going to do, at first, we're going to provide it to you as we build it out. That data is not finished yet. That package is not finished yet. Eventually, everything will be accessible to you through your username and password, where you'll be able to see it and play with it and do everything. So it is all coming and on the way, but we are, you know, slowly building it out now. So as soon as we have it accessible, we're going to provide it to you.
All right, can I have one last one, Debbie?
What?
So when you say that, for example, we put out a new advisory in the North Country, is that just going to go out to my North Country folks, or is it going to go across the state? Am I going to be getting everybody's advisories from across the state?
We can not only do your region, we can do the specific provider level in your region. You say this is an ALS only protocol, it will only go to the ALS providers within your. Our goal with notifications is to not overwhelm. Let's put it this way: if you get 50 notifications all the time, you're never going to pay attention, and it won't be impactful. Our goal is to not send out a notification every time there's a new advisory. Our goal is to only send out notifications when either a protocol changes or an advisory changes that is timely and truly important, right? A pandemic triage thing, something like that. We want to be as strategic as possible with sending notifications so that providers feel okay letting you provide them notifications, knowing that the only time we do so is when it's truly important, right? Our conversation with Amy and everyone at the Bureau is if there is an emergency, right, or there's a new protocol coming out, again, COVID's a great example, and we need 62,000 providers across the state to immediately know about a way they have to deal with something, we can do that, and we can help get that information out so fast that within hours, everyone knows, and it's not that they had to check on a group me or forgot to check an email or stuff like that. So everything about notifications is to only notify you when it's absolutely important to do so, and never any other time, for the exact reason you just mentioned. You're going to turn off MERS notifications if we notify you when Suffolk County has a new, I don't know, something.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. I think I've had my allotment of questions.
As much as you want.
I'll
Does
have
anybody
more.
else have any? Any questions for Amy or Steve?
Okay, I'll just throw out one other thing while we're here, just as a program agency thing. We'll be sending out a little online class for one person in the program agency office to handle, whoever that is that you guys want. And that will include all the details about any piece of the information you want about me, right? How to submit new protocols or advisory updates or things like that. And it'll include anything you want to link providers to our page, our information, training videos, the works. So we'll give all that to you, and you'll also have a direct line to me and everyone at the team for any questions you have, right? Like I truly look forward, as we have been with the Bureau, working directly with you to get the information to your providers, right? It doesn't work. We're just the platform, right? We're not the information itself. So we're really looking forward to working with you guys to get what you want delivered to them, delivered to you. And thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to give us this presentation and be on, so that people could learn and understand about this new app that the state has invested in, and hopefully it will make life for everybody easier. And there's additional options that are available to agencies that folks may want to take advantage of.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. If there's
No problem.
nothing else, we'll go ahead and continue on with our agenda. Minutes of the previous meeting from April were sent out. Any corrections, additions, changes? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a second?
I will
I'll
second.
second.
I think they were both at the same time. So Jonathan, it's either Bruce or Lance.
Okay.
The treasurer's report was also sent out ahead of the meeting. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Motion to accept the treasurer's report is presented.
I'll make the motion to accept treasurer's report.
Thank you, Dave. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Bob?
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
Bob or Larry?
Correct.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we'll keep moving. Secretary results. So if you remember, we had a tie when we were trying to do elections last month between Karen Blackburn and Dave Sherman. And so we did it by poll, and we still had a tie. So at this time, I'd like to let you know that Karen Blackburn has accepted the position of secretary. And we will talk about treasurer, appointment of treasurer when we get down to that and under new business. Moving on to the enforcement list. First one is suspended for 1 year effective 6/10/21 for failure to comply with a previous stipulation and order, Bensonhurst Volunteer Ambulance Service in Brookland. The next one is revoked effective 6/3/21 for violations of 800.16A5 and 800.16A7. Manisha Atkinson's in Rosedale, New York. Next one, surrendered for revocation upon consent effective 6/1/21 for violations of 800.16A7, Robert Lukens in Socrates, New York. The next one, suspended for 1 year effective 6/1/21. The suspension is stayed. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violation of 800.16A7, Sybil Frost in Brooklyn, New York. And the last one, revoked effective 5/21/21, assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 800.16A2 Keisha Brockington in Staten Island, New York. Those are the enforcement list. Other communication, this one is dated May 11th. I have put off sending this letter much longer than I should have for many different reasons. The most important reason being I wanted to be sure that my decision is final and what I truly want. After a few months of thinking time, I've decided to officially retire from nursing, local emergency medical services, and my service as a REMSCo member. As you know, my wife and I have now left the Star Lake area after selling our house on the lake and relocated to Waddington. We purchased a house here to finish the next step of our lives. We are now very close to numerous relatives and are seeing our youngest granddaughter very regularly and just enjoying life. I've been an active EMT for many years and greatly enjoyed helping people that led to a career advancement in the nursing field that I found very rewarding. But I am now 70 years old and working my last nursing shift in October of 2020. Since then, Deb and I are both fully retired and enjoying it immensely. Please see that Deb Singleton is aware of my decision to step down from REMSCO, and hopefully another EMT steps up to the plate from St. Lawrence County. I will miss seeing everyone and the rewarding feeling of providing assistance, people, but this is a happy move for me. If you are ever over this way, stop in to see us. Your friend and fellow EMT, Ron Hantz. Does anybody else have any communication? Any other communication? Okay, we'll keep moving. I don't see Mark Tuttle on. Do we have a air medical report? I know, Ann, you said you sent out reports, but I don't know if there's anybody on that wants to give a report.
Yeah, so Brian Crolius is on from Mercy Flight, if he'd like to give a report.
Hello, everyone. Just a couple of quick rundown here on the report. For Mercy Flight, our next webinar is August 16th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. We'll be pushing out any updates about that via our social media and email. We're going to include patient restraint and cardiac arrest management and human factors, and we're still researching other topics for our last portion of it. As far as call volume, it is on the rise. Scene trauma has been going up. We still are maintaining about a 60-40 split in favor of interfacility transports, but we are shifting back towards scene flights, especially with COVID restrictions lifting and returning to kind of a normal baseline operations. At this time, we have restored our ride-along program. PR events, ground schools, and base tours are back on track. The only thing going into consideration is group size as far as that goes. As we continue through summer, we plan to keep pace with the CDC and New York State guidelines and hope to return to in-person or hybrid learning at least for the fall education day. And that's all I've got for Mercy Flight. If anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next is audited. The books do continue to get audited. Obviously, if you look at the report, there's not a lot of checks written in a monthly period, but we're continuing to stay on top of that and making sure that everything is compliance. Is Bobby Simpson? I don't see her on from bylaw committee.
She's not here.
Okay, I'm going to request that the bylaw committee meet with me a few times. There's some things that I would like to get together to share for some potential changes. So look for some things to review from that. I'll get with the bylaw committee and we'll get going on that. Next is CON. Ann, do you have an update on that?
Nope, I haven't heard anything since that email that I sent to you. There's a St. Lawrence County agency that I heard the fire department became a fire district from a from the municipality that was previously running it. They requested CON paperwork her information from her office. We gave them all of that. It was after that I heard the rumor that the change had happened, and I was sending monthly emails to follow up, and finally got a response from a lawyer stating that he was working on the CON paper. There was ownership over the ambulance issue they were trying to straighten out, and that it would be forthcoming, but have not heard anything further. And what was that, a couple weeks ago, Debbie?
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
It's charging.
So that is why if you look at the bottom of the agenda, it says next meeting date to be determined because of potential CON. So if that comes in prior, we shouldn't be meeting again until October 14th, but we may need to meet sooner if that CON comes in and is deemed complete. So please keep an eye on emails and things to make sure that you're up to date on what may be going on. Look for emails from Jonathan or Ann if we need to get together. We certainly, I realize everybody likes to have the 5 weeks of summer that we have and not be tied up with meetings. But obviously, if it comes in and it is deemed complete, we will have to have a meeting to review that. Next is executive committee. We had an executive committee meeting back in May, and the purpose of it was to review the REMSCO attendance. And if you realize or remember in the bylaws, it says that you should not be absent for more than 50% of the meetings in a year, which really is not, I think it should be lower than that. When we only meet 4 times a year and missing them, it makes it kind of hard. So we went through it, and we have 3 people that letters were sent to, and they were removed from the council based on their attendance. So the first one was Jay Gannett. Out of 5 meetings, Jay was not at any of them. I did have a conversation with him today, and he was hoping with his night schedule as a supervisor at Guilfoyle that it would allow him to get on, and it just hadn't happened. And he hopes that if his schedule changes in the future that he could be reconsidered for a position. Obviously, Ron Hance was the next one, and he sent in a letter for us. The next one was Melissa Yancey from Lewis County. Out of 4 meetings, she was present at 1. And the last one was Kristen Mead, who out of 4 meetings was present at 2. So they did get letters letting them know. And we also did a doc from the REMAX side who had not been at any meetings. And obviously on that side, it's just as our side, you've got to have a quorum, and these people count towards your quorum. So we did remove a ER doc as well from the REMAC, and that was after consulting with Sarah to make sure that was what she wanted to do. Next up is Dave Sherman and legislation.
Good evening. We did not have a meeting, but as everybody's aware, the legislation session has ended. There was no real significant outcome for EMS in New York State. There was a bill that went through that calls for studying rural EMS. A task force that's going to be put together to study rural EMS. And not a lot has been put out on that as of yet, but that will be coming. Session's over. The thing is that this is a 2-session legislation body, so any bills that they have are going to be brought right back to the forefront when they go back into session in the fall. Anything that was out there that people might have been looking at are very likely to come back forward, but we don't have anything big to report on that right now.
Thank you. Membership, I kind of covered it up under the executive committee. I'll be working with Carol, and we'll try to get something out about open positions and see if we can't get some people interested. Nominating, that was last month. So up next is Peer with Mark Devers. If Mark, you want to give a report, and then I'm going to ask for the council to give the executive committee approval to review your nominations so that we can get in nominations for state council.
Good evening. So quick side note off the nominations real quick. We did work with 7 News to get that brief piece put up during EMS week that featured some of the agencies, and they were wonderful to work with, so we appreciate that. And some of the local radio stations, we also were able to convince them to give us a few plugs here and there. As far as nominations, we have one of the year nomination that actually comes to this committee, and I think I sent it to Jonathan. I don't know if he wants to shoot it up real quick.
I don't know if we had a chance to review them and vet them to make sure they meet the criteria, because typically that's what I would like us to do offline, because I don't want anybody to get upset, but they have to meet a certain criteria in order to be presented. Did you have a chance to do that, Mark?
We did not have a chance to review the award nomination for the criteria. Mostly because of time trying to get everybody together.
What is the preference of the council? Do you want to review these as a group, or do you want to allow the executive committee to review them and reach out to people that were nominated or by the nominator and get additional detail to make sure that they meet the criteria to be able to submit them for state council?
Please keep in mind, they have to be at the state council before July 1st.
Debbie, there is only one. It probably won't take too long to review it real quick.
I would say if there's only one, let's present it and then let the executive committee vet it and make sure it's solid before it's sent out.
Yeah, I would like to see it presented to the council.
I can do a brief synopsis of it if you would like. Well, Jonathan.
Go ahead.
Fighting to get my thing to present.
So this is a nomination that I wrote. It was for an ALS provider in St. Lawrence County. The provider was, I don't remember which criteria that I put in there first, but anyhow, they were dispatched for a call. And as they were getting ready to go to the call, so it's for Christina Cool. So basically, first is kind of just her background. She's been a long time provider. I have to fix the font because they don't give you enough spots to be able to write in the award for nomination. But basically, she was faced with many challenging calls in 2020. The first was when she was responding to a call for a stroke, and she realized upon arriving at the scene using her senses that something was wrong. They actually were able to get the patient out of a house and keep everybody safe when the stove burner was on and not lit. And the actual problem with the patient was not a stroke, but they were overcome with fumes from the gas stove, but it was a very volatile situation. Secondly, on the 21st of July, they were dispatched for a 93-year-old altered mental status. She responded to the station, was waiting a BLS provider en route to the station. When he did not arrive promptly, they thought that maybe he went directly to the scene. So they left the station with the ambulance, only to discover that the responding BLS provider had been in a bad accident and was entrapped in his truck. a short distance from the station. So this provider was like an adopted son to her, ran many calls for the department. And you want to move that up, Jonathan? And they had to extricate him. And she actually had to do a needle chest decompression on him en route to the hospital. He also had internal bleeding, and she was able to, she also called for additional assistance because she was alone in the back with him. She was able to keep her emotions intact, and quickly identified these life-threatening emergencies. And, you know, that provider's back in the back of the ambulance now, but not after a long rehabilitation, and immediately went into surgery for internal bleeding to be stabilized and flown to Syracuse. So other contributions is, she has been the mainstay in holding up a lot of calls in St. Lawrence County and that end of the county. So she does a lot of mutual aid to other departments. So does a lot of education. She's immaculate with her paperwork. Her ambulances are always spot on with inspections. So, and she does this for a few different agencies. So that was why I put her in for an award.
Any questions? Unless somebody wants to abstain, then we will be putting Chrissy Cool in for that award. Are there any abstentions at this point?
Debbie, would it be possible to motion that to go to the executive committee to ensure that the criteria are completely met before that's postmarked by July 1st?
Yes, it will. We'll go through it because we'll look at what we do is when we get these in, we go through and look at the criteria because we've learned there's certain keywords that need to be in there, and we've got to fix the font and all that stuff. And then what we've also done in the past as the executive committee is look throughout the region to see if there was other people that could be nominated, and try to put additional agencies or people in to give us a few nominations in there. But that will all be submitted by July 1st.
Yeah, I would make the motion that if the provider meets the criteria as reviewed by the executive committee to be submitted by July 1st.
I second.
Thank you, Carol. So Mike Bennett made a motion, seconded by Carol, that the executive committee review it, make sure it meets the criteria, and that we have the key points in there, and that it gets submitted to the state by July 1st. If anybody objects, please speak now. Very good. Going on, anything else, Mark? Under peer?
No, I don't.
Awesome. And program agency.
So just real quick before I start that, I would encourage anybody on this call, if they have something that we could, we only have one award. I did have an innovation award that goes directly to the state, but that's kind of counted different than the other ones. But we didn't get any award applications, so I just ask you all to look and to think, and if you need help, give us a call. We'll help get something written up. A second, let me get my slideshow up here. Okay. So from the REMAC perspective, do you want me to, I'll do that quick, then go right into my REMSCo. We did have a presentation at the REMAC from the Samaritan some folks at Samaritan, Michelle Mann and Dr. Bryden, who are working towards their provisional level 3 trauma status. And they had provided us with some information regarding that, as well as some trauma activation criteria, which I believe I sent out to the REMSCo too a bit ago when we got it. We talked about correspondence of new policy statements, 21-02, prevention and control of Ebola, 21-03, second interim guidance for EMS education for courses, 2104, submission of PCRs, which the big thing in that one is going to be they're asking providers to ensure that PCRs are completed within 4 hours, at least 90% of the time. Following the call, we also received the correspondence of multiple community paramedicine approvals. Amongst those for South Jefferson Rescue, Governor Rescue, Tiers, Indian River, and Carthage Rescue. And again, air medical reports went out on 4/23. There's 3 different committees that are works in process and continuing. One on Versa dosing, the data committee, and which we talked about at our last meeting here, I do believe as well. And the bulk drug purchasing committee, so those continue to move on. I am going to, John, no, never mind. And it wasn't going to let me share my screen there for a minute. Okay. So moving on, so the RSTAC, there are the dates up there. So Friday will be the RSTAC meeting. The RTAC met last Friday. I was unable to attend because I was in a conference, so Mark covered that for me. And they talked about some scene times for trauma patients. Talked again about TXA, again, as the state, the protocols have not been approved yet, but it looks like in Central New York, they're going to move forward with it. And the protocol being the hemorrhagic protocol at the state level that was approved with TXA in it. And there was discussions on proper indications for tourniquets and burn patients. Again, they're trauma patients first. It's important to limit the burn progression. They talked about the fluid management of burn patients and not to bolus them unless they're hypotensive, and utilizing the rule of nines and rule of palms. So just some general information that was shared at the REMAC. The stroke video that we put out, we reported on, you reported at the last meeting, which was phase 1. Was a little disappointed that we extended that. There is some money, it's not a lot of money, but would buy a piece of equipment or something for an agency. We only received 2 rosters, both of which from Central New York. And this is open to all agencies within Central New York and Northern New York. And again, overall, there was only 11 agencies out of 80 that participated in this in the North Country and received the money. They could actually, do something nice from their providers with it as well. Anyhow, there has been 725 providers who have taken the test. That's joint between the 2 regions. Only 165 providers in the North Country when we have almost 700, over 700 listed in our database. So the Upstate Stroke Quality Group met. I sent that out earlier today. If anybody wants to look at those and if they have any questions, they can get a hold of me or Josh Onion at the Stroke Center. Those are the meeting dates. Bruce Wright and Chris Towler were both added to that committee. Bruce with Guilfoyle and Chris with Potsdam Rescue. One of the things that they started to track was how often the FAST-TD was being used based on the documentation they received, as well as patients that received TPA and were shipped immediately. So those are the numbers there. One of the other reminders that came out from SUNY Upstate, and as well as Samaritan had made mention of this as a stroke center, is, and this is one of the data items that they track, is the pre-notification of stroke. So this continues to be a quality improvement project for the group. Missing PCRs, and the common theme that we were finding was incorrect destination hospital information. So Susie, my counterpart in Central New York, was able to locate, and those that were missing, the agencies were notified, so we can make sure that they're getting into Upstate's EMR. So just be careful when documenting destination. Agency renewals, Brownville, was a BLSFR, their 2-year renewal. They did review Harrisville Volunteer Rescue Squad CON, but that was status post a lapse. They had all the information in, they were missing a few things. Then there was a communication snafu, getting information back. So it lapsed, which puts them back to the EMT level. And I sent them a letter, but I've had no communication back to our office. They were an AEMT service. Regional adjuncts, we have a notification for St. Lawrence University, BLSFR, to do syringe epinephrine. There's no approvals needed for that. The health commerce system, this is something that we've been trying to get all agencies involved in over the last year. It's going to be used more for communications with the state. Agencies should make sure that they're verifying all new providers through the system and existing providers' expiration dates. Again, just a side note, the agency should ensure that all their providers are registered in the regional CME database as well. It sounds like the new EMT cards that will be coming out are going to require verification through the HCS. They're going to have a QR code. I remembered it this time. But in our process of trying to get our 80 agencies on, we found 7 current agencies who are not even listed in the HCS system. And we've been working with the state to get those agencies in there, and those are agencies for the most part that have had a change in their agency code, mostly new BLSFRs, but there is one agency that's been around forever without an agency code change that is not in there. We have 17 agencies who do not have a representative in the HCS right now, despite multiple emails that have gone out to agencies. We have also mailed 3 letters via the U.S. Postal Service and have received no response. And these are mostly BLSFR agencies. And again, just a reminder, the agencies need to update contacts for HCS if their contact changes. So currently right now, they have to get registered in the system, and then I have to approve them as the HCS coordinator for the region by verifying information through their driver's license or adding or removing them from the HCS system or that agency. EPCR, new EPCR, so Seaway Valley and Wellesley Island went live, and this is huge. This has been an ongoing goal for years, and we have finally met it. We are 100% electronic for all transporting agencies and ALSF first responders. So that's exciting. Thank you to everybody who assisted us in getting there. The EPCR continued. So I think we discussed it last time that agencies who were going to remain in the New York State Continuing Medical Education Program had to be electronic, and the state is now offering a free platform, which is this New York State Image Trend platform. You can see the agencies that we have up and running on it. The others have made their decision. This is what they're going to, and we're in the process of getting them up and running on it. They're doing some training, etc. So I have an inkling that they're going to rewrite the BLSFR policy statement, and they may all have to submit via electronic documentation, whether they're in the CME program or not, but at this time that does not exist, but probably better to prepare for it. Oh, and here we are, EPCR data integrity. This has consumed a huge portion of Jonathan's time and my time. They were updating the schematron, which is the back-end mapping of the system, and adding new required fields and changing some fields. So they put in some logical rules ahead of time, thinking they were going to go live on the 1st. They did not. They went live as soon as they were put in there, which caused all kinds of nightmares for agencies trying to get charts to lock and validate and move forward and export to the state. Since then, I can't even begin to tell you the number of meetings we have been in with EPCR vendors, with the state, with other program agencies, with everybody else trying to resolve issues. And there's been 4 schematron updates since the big one on June 1st to try and fix the issues that came about. And this was a huge challenge for everybody, but was especially challenging for volunteer agencies in trying to figure, because they got frustrated because they couldn't get their charts to lock, their close, or because things just weren't working right. We actually met with each vendor separately. So one of the things I will say for agencies is it's important for you to have somebody who is that EPCR coordinator who understands the back end of the system and can help when these things happen and understand the changes that need to be made within the system. So ESO is the one vendor that's still having a few issues, but we're working forward with them. So this has been huge. Jonathan, do you have anything else to add to that, or did I cover it?
Oh, that was good. I appreciate everyone's patience as it's taken us a little longer to respond to some things than normal, just because this has taken up so much of our time that we really didn't think a little hiccup, as the state put it, would take.
Yes. So CME skills, just a reminder that they are due on June 30th. Agencies should clean up their rosters in the CME database when they enter the skills. And that's the ALS skills. And again, notify our office if providers are no longer with the agency. They can do that in the system and or give us an email or a call. BLS skills are still due at the end of the year, and agencies are still expected to submit scheduled sessions for the CME. We successfully completed the 2021 EMS Virtual Leadership Conference with a multitude of area health education center support, along with E5 support services, and Lee Burns was very helpful with this conference as well. So it was very good. EM resource. So we have been advised that New York State has signed a contract with Jabari, which is software, or the program, whatever you call them, that run the EMS resource program. We're not sure what the state's plans are with it, but it does raise question with our contract. So we've reached out to Jabari, we've reached out to the state to discuss kind of what's going on and what their plan is for this program. Secondly, there was a discussion at REMAC tonight about diversion, and we've had 2 hospitals going on diversion at one time. So one of the suggestions came up about, make sure that the hospitals are possibly using the yellow status function on the Jabari app. And I will commend all of the Jefferson County hospitals, for the most part, they have been updating the app. There's been agencies who've been using it that have found it helpful. We're still not we're not having as much success in the other counties. So it is helpful with diversion and getting folks out of the silos. I already talked about the drug purchasing committee that's moving forward. Clarkson University, at the last REMSCo meeting, we had endorsed their course sponsor. They have been approved. Again, thank you to Jefferson County. And then there's some dates for some stuff that's going on at the state level. So I believe that is, yep, my last slide. So any questions for the program agency? I tried to whip through that as fast as I could. And did I miss anything from REMAC? Anybody who was at the REMAC meeting, please feel free to jump in. Okay. Oh.
Maybe you want to just talk about the RSI with Guilfoyle submission and what's happening with that.
And so under RSI status and testing, Guilfoyle has put forth a curriculum to be reviewed by the REMAC physicians for approval for them to utilize to move forward with the RSI.
Any questions for Ann or Jonathan? No questions? Okay. Larry, safety.
Hit all the right buttons here. I do actually have something, and we kind of discussed this, I think, last meeting a little bit, either offline or online, but anybody who's been watching the news lately knows that an ambulance was stolen in Utica and driven to Rochester. They were at the hospital, and you may not have picked it up, but it's on Statter 911, a link to it, of an ambulance that was stolen in Baltimore because the guy thought he was having a heart attack. I think he wanted to drive himself to the hospital. The key thing there is to make sure that, and make sure your agencies know that, make sure their stuff is secure. People are crazy out there, and like I say, the one with Kunkel, they lost an ambulance into the lake there, so it's not even like they can, buff out a couple of bad spots and take it in. That ambulance is totaled, and that's an awful lot of money to lose. So everybody keep that in mind. I ask, I think Jonathan to send out the link on that. On the Kunkel ambulance, and like I say, if you go to Statter 911, you can read about that one. I understand there's some audio though I haven't listened to. It's rather amusing. So that's all I've got for now.
So we haven't sent that out yet, Larry, because I wanted to kind of have the discussion here. Should we put something together that comes from the REMSCO, kind of more of a, instead of just throwing the link out there? I'm just throwing that out there for people's thoughts. I'm not sure, but I was just thinking of something. I don't know, Debbie, your thoughts, or Larry?
I would say that, yeah, we should preface it with, it can happen to you, as I kind of mentioned in the email, and actually look up the one about the incident in Maryland and in Baltimore and add that as well. The important part there is that people have policies and procedures that keep stuff, to keep their stuff secure. For many years, we pull into the hospital. Yeah, we have to shut the engine off because of the fumes, but we just get out of the ambulance and take our patient inside. We need to take a look at that and try to get that squared away a little better so that we don't have that happen, because again, it can happen to anybody.
So at South Jeff, we just bought, and I'm trying to think of the word, we bought these interlock device that we're putting on each of the ambulances. So once it's in park, you have to flip a switch in order to put it in drive, and they're going to be hid under the dashboard somewhere. So our hope is that this would eliminate possibly somebody stealing them. They're about $120 each. As soon as we get them installed, I'll have Ann send out something if people want to come look at them, if they want more information. According to the company and the website, they only take 20 minutes to install. So we're anxious to see if that really is going to be the case or not. A lot of times, just like everybody else, we run 2-person crews, so leaving somebody out with the ambulance is just not something that you can do. And if it's a critical patient, you don't want to be getting them out of the back of the ambulance and then running around and trying to lock the doors and all that stuff. So I'd be glad to share the information as soon as we get them installed. If anybody wants to come down and look at them or have more information, we'll give you the website and all that. We do not receive, I want to go on record, we're not receiving any funds from this company for promoting it. I'm just making you aware that it is something that we found as a means of trying to maybe keep our ambulances from being stolen.
And you'll have some practical experience you can share with us as well.
It's really sad. It's just sad that we even got to do this.
Yep.
So what are other folks' thought? Do we want to put together more of kind of an official correspondence or just an email, or what do you guys want? I mean, I'll do whatever. I could have just thrown it out there, but I just had a feeling that it might be better for this group to endorse it a little more and maybe push it out.
I think it's very worthwhile. I don't know how many times I can tell you I'm pulling into work at night, and there'd be just an ambulance sitting there across the parking lot in the area that they're designed to be in, and they're just there all by themselves, nothing locked, just for easy pickings, especially in this world of drug problems, how easy it would be to jump in and either ransack an ambulance or drive off with it. I think it's well worth our while to put something out more formal, make people more aware.
Maybe create a safety bulletin.
At least, yes.
I know there are several articles on News Junkie right now about this incident with Kinko's ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was just watching the video sitting here of it taking the splash. It's in the national news, at least in the industry.
Yes, it was tonight on the news again.
I think it'd be worth putting a link out of these incidents just for awareness.
You know, we discussed this here, but it's in the policies, recommendations from the state about having some means of securing your vehicle, whether it's double sets of keys or kill switches or something like that, has been pushed quite a bit. I mean, it got pushed real heavy right after 9/11, and then there was another incident in between, and then it just kind of died off again, and now you have a vehicle stolen. So everybody's going to jump on and start pushing it, and it really is for our own safety, so that we have those vehicles to continue using, and somebody else is not using them for harming someone else. So definitely we need to put something with it.
I wonder if putting a reminder in the ERs near the doors where they come in, someplace on a wall that they'd let us, and to remind, to secure your ambulance when you get out.
I just giggle because I had to put a reminder on the exit window of one of the ambulances I run with to remember to put a mask on the patient before I came in. So it made me think of that.
I think that, there's two things there. The sign's a good idea, is your ambulance secure type thing. But given what Dave just said, a little bit of information on that to go out with those links. The links serve as illustration. And what Dave pointed out is background information. So between the two of them, I think we could put some sort of a missive together to go out to everybody, and it should go out to all the agencies, not just us folks.
Yep, I agree.
Larry, will you take the lead on helping get that information together so that we can, maybe what we should, I mean, it's terrible, like Ann said, it's sad it's come to this, but I mean, on the thing today, there was a firefighter, I think it was in Tennessee maybe, that got their face slashed going to a call and all this. So unfortunately, I think there's information out there that maybe on something we could put out every other week with, you know, this is what's happened. What are you doing for your scene awareness and your safety and things like that, just to keep people thinking about that and making sure that our folks in our region and throughout the state are staying safe. So maybe we could try to develop something that we could put out every couple weeks with some best practices and some things to help our folks.
Yeah, and getting people to, again, Steader 911 is fire porn, but that's where there's a link on that. It's a link to a Twitter feed, but getting people, making sure people are looking at this industry information that comes out on a regular basis. These notifications come out industry wide to all of us, that it's important. So we can reinforce that, I think, as well. I'll work on that.
Thank you very much. Mark, REMSCo and CMAC.
Good evening again, and on to the anti-theft devices. I'm trying to look back in my notes and I don't see it right in front of me, but I do believe kill switches are part of the 800 revisions. I will try and confirm that and get that out, but that is very much so ringing a bell that kill switches are going to be required on ambulances moving forward. Out of the CMAC REMSCo stuff, there's 50 community paramedic programs in 40 counties. There's a good handful in our region. Policy statement 2101 defines the vaccination application process. Policy statement 2102 is the updated Ebola policy statement. It does have enforceable training requirements in there of donning and doffing PPE on a regular basis and skilling people out. So please make sure that you are following the guidance in the policy statement. They're still continuing to have some problems, even though most of them are being resolved with PSI, the testing vendor. Almost all testing is moved to computer-based. There's no paper tests on the third Thursday of the month anymore. In the next month or so, all initial paramedic certifications will require a national registry written exam. I believe they already require a registry practical skills exam. All paramedic programs will need to be accredited or in the process thereof by 2022. They will only be accepting PCRs, paper PCRs through the portal after July 1st. And encouraging agencies and medical directors to evaluate the capabilities of agencies to transport pediatric patients. Again, with the new Part 800, the pediatric restraint devices are going to be in the regulatory requirement. There's a leadership day on the 18th. We talked about the Muru app. IV nitroglycerin has been added to the formulary. It cannot be carried in ambulances yet because of the regulatory requirement that no glass vials be carried greater than 249 mLs. So you can't carry IV nitro in a 911 setting. You can still transport it in an interfacility setting. The iGel project is waiting commissioner's approval. There was some confusion on destinations for Ebola transports. It seems to be more in an interfacility setting. They've pushed it back to the committee. There was a lot of concern about Ebola with a little bit of a flare up in Africa a couple of months ago that sparked some speed with some of these policy statements and conversations. I'm sure it'll come to a shock for everybody that training in ed is short-staffed. They have made it so you can reschedule your attempts through PSI. It takes about 45 or 48 hours after the first attempt. They don't know what they're doing with course sponsor renewals. We're seeing decreased number of EMTs testing. And one of the things they are seeing, again, tests are not the third Thursday of the month anymore. The student has to schedule them on their own, and there is a very obvious correlation between how long they wait and their success. They are trying to put some limitations on how long a student can wait for their first attempt. However, it is currently 1 year. So be encouraging students to sign up as soon as they can. And it's really after the 30 to 45 day mark, the fail rate on the first attempt skyrockets. If you have instructor certification questions, talk to Jean, because Liz is out of the office due to some medical issues, and we wish her the best. They don't know that the Bureau has the authority to regulate the geography of a course sponsor. So that is a ongoing conversation that we will see what it looks like. They're going to be adding the critical care level to the instructor certifications. They approved the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's changes issued on 3/29 to add IM injections to the EMT scope of practice and immunization during public health emergency to all levels, as well as specimen collection via nasal swab to all levels, EMT and above. The state has decided that there's a continuing problem with workforce, so we're going to do another workforce study. And they think that this data is going to be essential to help the changes. They're looking at some more course sponsor stuff and the money that course sponsors get. They're going to be rewriting or overhauling the emergency vehicle operators policy statement that dates way back into the early 2000s or even the 90s. So look for that probably about this time next year. The legislative session is currently over, so the legislation stuff is at least on hold for now. There's a big concern about provider resiliency, and Ann talked about data earlier. Quality metrics are coming. They're calling them benchmarks, at least for now, where you should be at, and we've discussed these briefly at other meetings. They got the final benchmark, which has to do with pediatric respiratory distress and assessing pediatric patients with respiratory distress as their chief complaint, and evaluating work of breathing, SpO2, and respiratory rate. The other ones are EKG on chest pain patients, management of cardiac arrest patients, Narcan administration, trauma, blood glucose, and stroke and possible stroke, and stroke assessments and possible stroke patients. I lost my page, I apologize. Be looking for a lot more quality data figures coming out. This thoroughly enjoyable rollout of data updates, I think, is going to be the first of several coming out as the state gears towards looking for a lot more data information and to be able to pull information. Also, I will reemphasize what Ann said on the new documentation policy statement. Your goal should be 90% within 4 hours. I would really start paying close attention to that, because it's a goal now. What they can do with that is yet to be seen. And the treatment in place stuff, they've extended some payments on it, or they've made it so it can be retroactive. any service done before 5/5 of 21, your bill to Medicare must be filed by 5/5 of 22. Other than that, it's 1 year from date of service. And I believe I hit all the highlights.
Any questions for Mark from the CMAC and REMSCo? And I will let you know that our CMAC doc, Matt Maynard, was on the call as well. So it's nice that we got that representation back. So any questions for Mark?
I just have a couple things. So when Mark talked about the not being able to regulate the geography for course sponsors, one of the things that's actually in regulation and it's kind of fallen off the cliff for the last couple of years was, remember that regional training and budget template that we used to do? That's coming back in some form, shape, or another. So that the REMSCo is going to be responsible for doing, this is their thought process. The REMSCO is going to be responsible for doing that training plan. And then if others are coming in to do training in the area, it's going to have to be in conjunction with that regional training plan. But that's, again, just their thought process on it. It could change. But that is, you're probably going to see that come back. They just, I can't remember the last one I did. I've done a few since I've been back, but we didn't get one last year. And maybe, I can't remember whether we did the year before, but because we used to get the data that went along with that, which was good. And Mark, I whipped through the proposed ambulance list, equipment list, and unless it's somewhere else in the regulations, I didn't see it on there for the ambulance kill switch.
When I was staring at it quick, I did not see it. It may have been removed. I do remember the conversation coming up in committee. It very well could have been removed, and I apologize for not having it in front of me.
I just couldn't remember either, so I just thought I'd pull it up quick, like, since I had it here.
Chris was just wondering if anybody had heard any answers to the questions that he brought up at committee at that.
Well, we submitted committee to Mike McAvoy. We asked a whole bunch of questions, and Ann was on, and I know she has some questions. Jean was going to get back to her. I put a question in the chat box. I still haven't heard anything from Jean about some of our specific questions we submitted.
So with mine, they were going to, so what they did was they're going to put a critical care box back on the instructor certificate. Liz was bound and determined that there not be one there because critical care's level didn't exist anymore. And I says, but they do exist and they will exist until they're sunset. The providers are still out there. And instructors still teach that level of care. So I don't remember what the other specific questions are without looking.
Well,
Chris.
There was a question about when this whole process went into effect, and nobody can give us an answer. The closest we can get is maybe it was sometime in 2013 or 2014 or 2016. Nobody knows when that took effect, that if you were a CIC before this date, this didn't apply to you. And nobody knows who this applies to, who it doesn't. I've shared with you guys that when I called John Morrissey and we took all of our instructors' names and John checked everybody's status, I had a list. And then when I called Liz, I got a completely different list. So trying to get this information from a core sponsor point of view, it's very difficult when two people from the state are giving you two different answers. So when we typed all that stuff and we sent it to Mike McAvoy, it seems like they really only addressed one issue, and that was the certificates. They didn't address the other issues that were on that email. I'm just curious if you've heard anything, or if this is anything, Mark has heard anything from anybody after?
I will give you the New York State answer as of right now. 70% of the Bureau staff is tasked with COVID-related operations and not in the office. If you email me and remind me in the morning, I will follow up with Mike and Jean and the others with the questions. But right now, the Bureau, there's some staffing changes, including out of the Syracuse Regional Office. And they are still about 70% is on COVID-related operations. So the speed that the Bureau is moving at is slower than normal.
Well, Jefferson County's EMS office is 50 to 70% COVID too, and we seem to be able to get our paperwork submitted and respond to our stuff. We're still doing courses. You know, every meeting they have is, you know, we're here to help you. Just send us an email. We'll get back to you. And you send emails after emails after emails and nobody answers you. It gets quite frustrating. I have an email that I sent to Steve DeZuro 2 years ago, and I still haven't got an answer for it. So it's just very frustrating to listen to the conference calls they have, and they pat each other on the back. What a great job we're all doing, but you know, we in the field are also facing difficulties, and when we ask some, I think, very simple questions, when did this policy go into effect? That seems like a pretty simple answer. I'm not really looking for a lot else. They can't even give us that answer. I just find that very frustrating. It seems to be a very, very one-way street. That we're expected to have our stuff done on time, correctly submitted, and I just don't seem to get the same cooperation from the other side. It seems very, very frustrating.
So set a weekly reminder and send them an email every week. Sooner or later, they get sick of hearing from you and you get an answer.
Yeah, they probably would.
There is a method to my madness sometimes.
I would also offer the more people that are in the 2 line, the quicker they respond.
In the 2 line?
CC.
I gotcha. Yep.
Anything else for REMSCo or CMAC? Are you getting off your soapbox now? So you're sitting
Nope.
right down here at the table?
I'm done.
Okay. Paul, training and ed.
We have nothing to report at this time.
Are you being funny or serious?
That was being serious. We've not met. We don't have anything moving forward. The only thing out there pending is the issue with the difficult airway.
Okay. Well, Paul, you're on such a roll. Let's see how you do on your county report.
Well, my county report's a little bit different. We've actually been doing things at the county, as Chris has already alluded to. Our spring classes are all completed. We had 5 successful classes completed. Actually 9 if you count the refresher classes. We did do a statewide instructor update, which was well received. We had over 50 participants from all over the state. Right now, pending for the fall, we've got an original and refresher scheduled in Watertown, an original and refresher scheduled at Lewis County, an original at South Jeff High School, and a first responder original and refresher in Brownville. All those applications have been in to Albany, and as Chris has alluded to, we submit them in a timely manner, but it's been nearly 2 weeks, going on 2 weeks, and we still haven't gotten a return acknowledgement of those classes, so we're following that up with another email. We have 3 new CIC interns coming down the line, so the 2 of them will be actively participating this spring, or this fall, I'm sorry. We're continuing to assist the paramedic programs, both the Herkimer program as well as Northwell's bridge program. They have started their 6th cohort. We're still doing our AHA stuff, and including ACLS and PALS. Just a couple little tidbits regarding the vaccination, how those are going within the county. And this data was from last Monday, a week ago. We've had over 20,000 individuals vaccinated through the Jefferson County clinics. We've held over 100 clinics in the first 6 months, which is pretty darn impressive. One of the things that I would like to do publicly is thank Guilfoyle. Guilfoyle provided an ambulance for our big clinics up at JCC without any enumeration or that. He just volunteered and sent up a crew. So their participation was greatly appreciated. In respect to our community paramedicine, we're up and running. We've got 3 participating departments right now. Carthage and Indian River have started doing some vaccines. South Jeff has been very active. And at this today state, we've done over 200 shut-ins or migrant farmers in that program. So we've been pretty busy. And despite that, we still were able to put on classes. I wanted to talk just real quickly again about ODMAP, our participation. Still, we only have a couple of departments out there that are actively entering into that system. It would be great if more people would become involved. To date, we've had 80 overdoses for this year, with 10 of those being fatalities. We have our quarterly Central New York Emergency Preparedness Coalition meeting later this month. We have the county fair coming up in July, the 13th to the 18th. We are looking for volunteers, either individuals or squads that would be willing to take a day at the fair. Right at this point, Tuesdays are being covered by South Jeff Rescue. Wednesday is being covered by Carthage Area Rescue. We'd like to have our volunteers there from 11 in the morning to 11 at night. So if anybody has knows of a department who want to reach out and help, last fair, not last year, the year before, I think Chris and I spent about 80 hours at the fair that week. We just didn't have much of any assistance, so we're really looking for a little help. We are participating with the Fort Drum exercise, and I'm not going to take any steam away from Rich. But there will be a MassCal in August, and we will be looking for agencies to participate as mutual aid response. The numbers and so on like that, we're going to kind of keep on the quiet at this point until we get direction from the post as far as letting the beans out. We have gotten our legislature approval, and our EMS advisory board is moving forward. We were planning our initial inaugural meeting at the end of this month, but we were needing to move it out until July because of the county board of legislature meeting. So the date we chose did not work. So we'll be picking another in July to get that off and running. And other than that, that pretty much summarizes. We've been busy.
Any questions for Paul on the Jefferson County report? Okay, who's going to give us St. Lawrence County's report?
Mark?
So, they're working on the radio system. We're happy that Clarkson is working, has completed the course sponsorship and is moving towards some first classes. We'd like to thank Jefferson County EMS for their support for the last couple of years. We are starting to see some continued manpower shortages, especially as volumes increase. The struggles seem to be increasing pretty good with moving patients in various fashions. We countywide have done in the neighborhood of 45 at-home vaccines through the community paramedicine program, and vaccinated thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. I believe countywide we're approaching 130,000 total people vaccinated. Of course, a large number of them aren't actually from St. Lawrence County because of the large vaccine site in Potsdam. And other than that, I don't have anything off the top of my head to report.
So a couple of additional things. We are looking at, there seems to be a rise in cardiac arrests in the county. I don't have the data in front of me. I know Jonathan pulled a bunch of data for John Mitchell. And secondly, I'm working with the 911 center. We've had, so the ambulance calls are getting covered by someone, but now we're starting to pull data from the dispatch records on how many of those coverages are somebody from a different CON area, because that's what's happening a lot. We're also looking at the length of time. There's two particular instances that stick out where it took over an hour to get an ambulance to a patient. So we're kind of tracking those a little more. We're getting it on paper. We're getting the documentation. I had presented to the county legislatures a few years ago. You know, St. Lawrence County is really starting to feel the manpower shortage. Excuse me, I should say workforce shortage, so I'm gender neutral there. And yeah, that's what we're doing. We're really starting to pull numbers now and get some of this down on paper so that we can portray it, not just say it. That's all.
Any questions? Any questions on the St. Lawrence County report? Okay, Bob, Lewis County.
Okay, well, you could pretty much take what Paul said and you can just ditto it for Lewis County. We have been working right along, trying to open things back up with towns and villages. We're looking at having the county fair again, so we're looking for additional help down there. We're also got the Cream Cheese Festival coming up, which is a single day event, which is almost as many people as the fair. We are still doing our CPR classes, and we've been assisting the hospitals with the testing supplies, as well as assisting with the vaccination sites to the best of our abilities when we're requested there. Big thanks to LSR for going out to a lot of these sites and doing standbys. We've also had quite a few volunteer agencies that have done the standbys in the peripheries as well. We are doing the OD mapping for the state police, the sheriffs, and the village police as well. And we've noticed overdoses on the rise as well. So we're continuing to track that, but we are still missing some PCRs from that, and we do have to go chase down that information. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us as well. So overall in the county, our call numbers as well are on the rise, with many agencies out of service during the day. So there are other agencies that are coming in to cover them. And a lot of these agencies, as we did that study a few years back, Deb did that. Thank you, Deb. That was a very good study because it opened my eyes up a little bit. And I can tell you right now that we do have some agencies that are hanging on 1 or 2 providers. And those are the ones that are out of service during the day. Shame on them for being gainfully employed and having to work during the day. But they're, you know, even the calls at night are still being flipped off to other agencies, and it's increasing the times. No calls are going uncovered. LSR is always, you know, right there to jump on and get out on the road and be able to handle those calls for those peripheral agencies that may be out of service. But the burden that it's placing on them is tremendous. So we really do need to work on getting some new EMS folks in there. But it's going to be difficult to get EMS folks in there and keep them in there. We've had a tremendous amount of challenges with the changes to the new EPCR. The mandated fields are absolutely driving EMS providers away from even wanting to go on calls because they don't want to do the chart afterwards. Some of the things that they've added in there are just absolutely ridiculous. You get a 12-year-old that's got a rolled ankle and they want to know how many injuries were at the MCI and advanced directives for a 12-year-old. It's a mandated field. Are you kidding me? I just wonder if this is, you know, if this is the least used fields and they mandated them just to check another box. It's very, very frustrating. The amount of providers that we've had that were frustrated to the point of exasperation is just beyond anything you could ever believe. Jen and I are getting calls on Saturdays and Sundays for people charting, trying to figure out what's going on. And even the people that are the chart gurus for those agencies are frustrated with all of this. And it's truly been a challenge. But we're looking forward to getting through this. And hopefully the state can figure out, you know, all these little quote unquote hiccups that they're calling them. I call it a disaster, but hopefully we can raise an eyebrow. I've written, rewritten, and written again an email because every time I start to type it, I start to get angry fingers, and I don't want to do that. So I want to keep it. I want to keep it direct and to the point. But there will be an email going out from me, and I would offer that all the agencies that are suffering these same challenges reach out to your county EMS office and share your concerns with them so that we can put it appropriately back up to the state. And I would hope that you know, I'll CC the region on it as well, because this is very, very challenging and frustrating times. And with just coming off of COVID, it's we've lost enough providers just from that alone. I'm really, really deeply concerned about the future of EMS in Lewis. I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you for your time.
Well, Bob, I can tell you, I was very frustrated. My issue just got resolved with EMS charts last night. I tried calling down to Albany to have somebody help me, and the person that, you know, has kind of taken the lead was traveling this week. So I found that rather frustrating that we weren't able to advance charts, and as many organizations, with no charts advanced to your billing company, there's nothing being billed. So I found it very frustrating. So I know exactly where you're coming from. And yeah, I mean, if people don't feel good, you know, that you take them in with a sprained ankle and you ask them if they've got an advanced directive, they're looking at you like, is there something I should know? So I know where you're coming from. It's a very frustrating part of what's going on here.
Well, I could tell you on a side note, I had the unfortunate event of an unintended death, and some of the mandated fields was an AED used in the field, and that was a mandated field. And what was the initial etiology? And I'm sorry, it just wouldn't allow me to continue on with the chart without filling in something there. And having been a provider for a little while and having done a few charts, I absolutely refuse to put in erroneous information so that somebody can check a box.
So just an FYI, I made enough complaints that we finally have the DNR field is having a negative of not reporting. Because I agree wholeheartedly with you. I don't ask every patient that question, and I refuse to. And I also refuse to document erroneously. Secondly, there's logic rules that have to be written behind this in the schematron. So make sure that if you're coming up against something that our office knows, we have access to the NEMSIS data dictionary that we can look at, and we've been hoping we don't have the new state data dictionary, but once we get that, we can actually see the rules so that we can give them the suggestion of, you need to, this field should only activate in these cases and not in these cases, based on the options and the different PCR programs. But we have really, really spent hours and hours and hours trying to fix this for you guys. We didn't, the state's answer was call your program agency. So that's probably the answer you would have got, Debbie, if you did get a hold of Albany. And just on a side note, that person's father died as well a couple days ago.
I didn't hear you, Ann. What?
That person's father passed away too. The Peter Brody's father. So.
Yes, and
next,
actually, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the program agency and everybody who's been involved in trying to get through this process. And I'm sure Deb has been right there with you right along, and I can't thank you enough for the support that you've given the counties and the agencies in trying to get through this process.
Rich Hughes, I don't have you under reports, but I'm going to add you to the agenda. So I didn't know if you would like to give a report from Fort Drum.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Couple things. Administratively, our EMS is going to be moving under the supervision of the Director of Emergency Services come October 1st. Really shouldn't notice any change to the services provided. They're not going to move their ambulance from the clinic. It's just an administrative alignment, to be honest with you. The medical director is going to remain the same. Somewhere down the road, when we do some facility upgrades, the ambulance is probably going to be located at the fire station. But for now, it's just an administrative realignment. Secondly, we are going to be having our version of the county fair, our Mountain Fest, on September 1st. Normally we do that in June of every year, but they decided to move this back towards Labor Day. So on Wednesday, September 1st is going to be the big activity day with the big Army demonstration, the Salute to the Nation ceremony, the big concert, and the fireworks. We don't know who the performer for the concert is yet. At some point in time, they'll announce that, but it's a big deal because the sponsors want to make a big show of it. But usually they get a pretty well-known country performer. And lastly, we are having our mass cal exercise on August 11th, and all the hospitals are participating. Not all, excuse me, Samaritan, Carthage, and we are having some role players air medevac to SUNY Upstate. And Paul and Chris, I'll be talking to you guys in the near future about volunteering or any agencies that want to participate. So unless anybody has any questions for me, that's all I have.
Thank you, Rich. Going on to old business, we need to talk about spring fling or / our fall frolic. We did discuss this at the executive committee, and I have talked with Judy Radley up at Edgewood. Janine Radley. She is concerned about costs of food because food continues to rise. She sent me an updated contract today, and our meals are going up about $2 a person. So not knowing where we're at with what's open, what we can do, what we can't. Ann and Mark had shared that the numbers for the a couple of the conferences have been down because people were showing up and they were having their temperature taken, and if they had a temperature, they weren't being allowed in. So people are like, I'm not going to spend money for a hotel and everything if I'm not going to be able to attend the conference. So the executive committee is bringing forth to you the recommendation that we do not try to do anything in September, and that we concentrate our efforts on coming back in April stronger and greater than ever, and just concentrate our efforts there. We certainly don't want to put out a conference that's half-assed. We don't want to have to charge more. We recognize that agencies and people in this trying time may not be able to do that. Our thoughts were that perhaps if these new protocols that we're waiting for, the TXA and the secondary airways for EMTs and stuff, that perhaps what we could do is do a training day in each county and try to get a couple sponsors so that we could do that free for the counties and leave it at that. So I would like to open it up for comments or suggestions from you folks on what you think we should do. Don't all speak at once.
I'll speak, Deb. I would say at this point, as we're midway through June, having in the past tried to coordinate ALS track, timeline is not good. It literally takes months to get your instructors who's going to teach what and get those outlines done. So you're right, it would be put together quite haphazardly. So I agree. At this point, we just take our licks for the year and just planning in the spring, putting on a good presentation and a good weekend.
Anybody else with some thoughts?
I agree with Paul.
I agree with Paul as well. I just think that hopefully this fall we can start to focus on spring fling and maybe get an early start on it so we're not quite against it.
Would somebody like to make that a motion for me, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. So Ron, seconded by Carol, that we not attempt to do a conference in September, and that we concentrate our efforts on our spring fling in April. And please try to not make this well known until I can reach out to Janine tomorrow. I would like her to hear that from me. I probably will drive up to Alex Bay and meet with her in person. They've always been so good and so accommodating to us, and I just don't want her to hear this second or third hand. So unless anybody has an objection, if you do, please speak now. Very good. Is there any other old business before we go on to new business? Okay, the next thing is the appointment of a treasurer. As I had mentioned, Jay is no longer with us. And I had a conversation with Dave Sherman, because Dave and Karen were both running for secretary, to see if Dave would perhaps take the treasurer position, and he is willing to do that. One of the things that I would like the bylaw committee to look at is not having the treasurer be a voted position, but rather an appointed position by the executive committee, looking for somebody that has the accounting savvy to make sure that things are taken care of. This position does not have as much responsibilities as it used to, because we do contract with Ann and Jonathan, and they do a lot of the work, but we still have to have a treasurer that oversees it and makes sure that they're looking at the books and all that. So I would like to see if anybody else is interested in the position. If not, I would look for a motion from the floor to appoint Dave Sherman as treasurer.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
So we have a motion from Ron Smith and a second from Bruce Wright that we appoint Dave Sherman as treasurer. Are there any abstentions? Dave, welcome aboard.
Didn't Larry make the motion?
I thought it was Ron.
It was Ron.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought it was Larry.
Ron can have it. My mic was muted, so Ron can take it.
Oh,
So the next thing we have is Survey Monkey, and I can't remember what the other one was that came off your credit card.
go-to meeting.
Go-to meeting. So these type renewals, in order to keep the rates down, require that you have a credit card in the program that they can automatically rebill. And we applied for a credit card a couple of years ago and did not get that. I would like permission of this council to go ahead and get a secured credit card where we put $1,000 on it that can be used for things like this, and that we transfer over the Survey Monkey and the go-to meeting so that they would come out of this and not have to come out of somebody's personal account.
I'll make that motion. That's a good idea.
I'll
So
second.
Ron Smith makes a motion. Who seconded?
James Barr.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second from James Parr to go ahead and get a secured credit card. My recommendation would be that we put $1,000 on it. And when it gets below that we just have it, automatically pull from the savings account to keep it at the 1,000, so that we have that available for activities associated with this REMSCo. Any objections? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and get that taken care of this week. We appointed Dave Sherman as treasurer, so what I have to do is I have to work with Jonathan. We have to get the minutes typed up, and we have to have them notarized to take to the bank. That will allow us to get Jay off the accounts and to get Karen Blackburn on as the secretary, so that we have our full slate of officers able to do business at the community bank. It is time to renew our liability insurance. I have that bill as well, and that is $930. And I'm looking for approval to go ahead and continue with our liability insurance. It is the coverage for the elected officials if something should happen, and gives us that coverage.
Again, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ron.
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Any objections to keeping our liability board insurance for $930 for the year?
That covers embezzlement and all that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yep.
I hate to think that you have to have insurance for that kind of thing, but unfortunately, it happens.
Yep. It's embezzlement, and again, if as the executive committee, we make a decision on something, on a CON or whatever, and we were to be sued individually, this gives us the coverage to provide our legal defense if we need it. So, any objections? Okay, we will get that taken care of. Whistleblower conflict of interest forms. Jonathan, did you want to mention that, please?
Yep, so I should have sent them back in April, and that's my apologies, but you'll be getting your whistleblower and conflict of interest forms for the 2021-2022 year. I'll try to have them out by Friday. I'm gonna try to put a virtual signature portion on them so you don't have to print them out and sign them and scan them back to me. But I will be sending nagging notices if I don't have them by at least August. So
no problem.
Those done and in once you get it.
And just so folks know, we are required under the grants gateway to indicate that we do that on a yearly basis and to forward the form, upload the form under the forms part of the grants gateway showing that we do both of those. So those are rather important that we make sure we keep those taken care of. New business, open from the floor. Anybody got anything?
Debbie, do you need to do an approval for the payment of the Go-To-Monkey and the Go-To-Monkey? Oh my God, it's late. Go-To meeting and Survey Monkey.
We can, and you know what? You just did that. What was that word in REMAC? Now we're gonna screw this one up.
Fentanyl and ketamine.
So the Survey Monkey, Ian, was how much?
No, I don't remember that one.
Altogether, I think for two of them, it was around $1,000 for the year. And I will tell you that we, you know, obviously use both of these quite often. The Go-To meeting has been a godsend this last year, so that we've been able to continue to conduct business for the region. And the Survey Monkey, we use that, and that is available. You know, we talked about a lot of different things tonight, and perhaps some of the committees can use some of this stuff to gather information from our providers and our agencies to make sure we're giving them what they need to help them.
And it's always available. We will set up either Jonathan or I will set up whatever you need.
Is this money budgeted at all or not?
Yes, it is. It's in the budget. Yep.
Then I'll make the motion that we do it.
Ron Smith made a motion to continue with Survey Monkey in the Go-To meeting. Do I have a second?
Second, Larry.
Carol or Larry seconded, whoever you, I heard both of them, Jonathan, so I'll let you write that down. Any
It's
objections?
roughly $500-ish, because I think Go-To meetings like 370 something and the Survey Monkeys 1 something.
Oh, I thought it was
Other way
more.
around. We renegotiated the Go-To meeting.
Yeah, I think Survey Monkeys
400 and something.
400 and something, but maybe not. Maybe we get it at a different rate. But they are in the budget. They are budgeted on that budget line for them. Any objections? Hearing none. Anything else from the floor? I know it's late. Thank you,
Are we
everybody,
ever
for hanging in there. We've covered a lot of stuff.
Are we ever going to go to in-person meetings again?
I would like to think we are, and you know, they keep relaxing things. So I would hope that by October we should be able to get back together and see everybody and meet in person. So
I would hope that we would not meet in that room at Ann's office we're packed in like sardines. I would hope that we would find someplace that was more open than that meeting room.
we will put that on the agenda to make sure that we do that, Ron. And I misspoke when I said our meeting was October 14th. It's actually, Jonathan sent me a quick chat here. It's October 18th. And again, I don't know if we'll be meeting before then. It really depends on when we get that paperwork from the lawyer. And we're going to need to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's and stick to our timeline with the CMS lawyer so that we don't give any grounds for any problems down the road. So
This
it's
is a
gonna be-
transfer CON?
Yes,
Transfer CON?
yes.
I didn't think we had the same timelines as we do for full CON. I didn't think we had to abide by the 60-day timeline.
Yes, we still have the timelines.
Not for transfer.
Well, I mean, if they submit it in June or July, we can't expect them to wait until October 18th. That's just not gonna be realistic. We're gonna need to do something before then. Any other new business from the floor? Any other new business from the floor?
Make the motion, we end the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
You'll second. Thank you. If anybody has any objections, now speak up.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.